Children find a mysterious spaceship. Pirates plunder the galaxy. A mysterious figure finds the kids and more as the Sky Guys are back to recap the.
All right, we are back here on the Sky Guys podcast, going over the premiere of Skeleton Crew. The first two episodes dropped a day early on Disney Plus, so you're getting a very rare Tuesday night drop from the Sky Guys here. I'm your host, Mike Phillips. Joining me today, the man who's voiced narration every single week, Pete Consadori is here. Pete, how are you?
Doing well. Yeah, very excited to talk about the Skeleton Crew and see what you guys thought about the, like you said, the early premiere of the show. Very rare for us to be on a Tuesday night, so I'm glad to be early in the week here and discuss it with you guys.
Yep. Also here with us, the newly crowned pirate king of this podcast, Nick Fraietta is here. Nick, how are you?
Doing great. I'm really excited to talk about this and hear what you guys thought.
Yeah, I'm excited too to get into this. It was a fun episode, in my opinion. And Pete want to subscribe to the Sky Guys. They can do so Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, Spotify, Amazon, all usual suspects. Simply search for just for the Sky Guys if you're a podcast platform. Final episodes there. Friends of the Just and the Suffering podcast. We're coming to you over the weekend, but if you want the episode recaps as soon as we drop them, make sure you're subscribed here. Get that stuff.
Yeah, make sure you subscribe. Subscribe to Just and the Suffering too. So our parent company,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely subscribe. It's free. You get the content quick. And you get to hear us talk about the latest episodes and all the cool stuff that we do behind the scenes as well.
Yep. And Nick, people want to check us out on social media. How can they do that?
Follow at Sky Guys Podcast on Instagram, Twitter X, and TikTok.
Yep, you can also check out the social media, the YouTube version, Mike Phillips on YouTube, all the videos, the props, and our social media comment of the week. This is from our discussion last week about the braving the future of Star Wars on the big screen. This is a comment from Big Sky Boy on TikTok. Said, "Disney trying to do what Lucas should have done: make sequels. The protagonist is still young. You missed much of Mark Hamill. Going with Rey is a good decision." And then Cam didn't reply to that. If they make better movies, I'm so with it. I honestly like Ridley. The script just failed her. So I think this is not a bad point, Pete, that like this is something that we missed out on because George took the break after Return of the Jedi. We didn't get Hamill in his prime. So this just feels like Disney trying to correct the mistake of we have the Marvel character. Let's not let Daisy really get to 50 before you're doing that movie with her.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if we even get a sequel trilogy if Disney doesn't buy Star Wars in general. I think that was a Disney bought the franchise and said, let's do something new. So I don't want to blame anyone. Things happen for a reason and things happen, per someone's schedule and everything like that. So I'm not going to blame Lucas and say like you sat on this too long. I think Disney saw the opportunity and wanted to make a sequel trilogy or another trilogy because now they own the property and they wanted to make more movies and have a new face of the franchise that they can leverage, for merchandising for their parks and all that kind of stuff. So I just think that's kind of where the cards fell, and they did what they could with the actors and actresses they had when it came to age wise, prime wise, however you want to look at it. But I mean, look, it's a good comment.
Yeah. Nick, any thoughts?
I agree. I agree. You got to go with what's fresh. And obviously, Mark Hamill's in his 60s now, not fresh anymore.
Yeah, I think Mark Hamill's actually in his 70s.
All right, there you go then.
Yeah, and Nick, do we have any Star Wars news this guy's big? I know we recorded doubled up last week, so I think we might have a little bit to catch up on.
We got some news. So, John Watts, who's the creator of the Skeleton Crew, he revealed that it was originally pitched as a movie before settling on a show to have more room to tell his story. Let's hope this doesn't turn into we had an hour and a half of content and we're going to give you random nonsense, but I don't think it is
No,
going to be like that.
I think from what we saw, Pete, in the premiere, I think this works better with more room to let these kids breathe a little bit.
Hey, say that again. I'm sorry. I don't think I understood.
I think based on what we saw in the premiere, I think it's good that we had the extra time to let these tell the story of these four kids and get to know them better over the course of 8 episodes, opposed to like an hour and a half movie.
Yeah, I mean, it does concern me a tad. We'll talk about the episodes coming up here. But I think it's too soon to tell. I think we were given good content when it comes to the flow, I don't think they were kind of scrapping for ideas, at least for the first two episodes. So we'll see what happens in the next six. But I don't disagree with you. I think developing the characters are good. I just don't know how much we can right now. So to be determined for me.
Okay.
Manny Jacinto, who played Chimere in The Acolyte, said that Darth Plagueis was going to be significantly involved in the season two. That didn't happen. You know my thoughts on this. If you planned it for season two and you didn't know season two was happening, why didn't you just put it in season one?
Fair point.
But too late now.
Yeah.
Dave Filoni says he's the only writer on Ahsoka season two, and he is still working on his script for the season. Um, I kind of did that out of order. I'm
Yeah.
going to skip that for now. We're going to go back to that.
Yeah.
I don't know who this guy is.
Uh,
Dennis Phil. Oh,
eh,
you wrote it here. The
eh,
director of Dune.
yeah. Denny Villeneuve, the director of Dune.
Well, he says he lost all interest in Star Wars in 1983 because he hated Return of the Jedi and the Ewoks specifically. So he is not a fan of the prequels or sequels. But let's move to Ahsoka season two. So Filoni said he's the only writer on Ahsoka season two, and he's still working on his script. And there's rumors circulating that the way it's being written is so it has a satisfying conclusion at the end of season two in case the show is canceled. So I guess they're kind of, I don't want to say expecting, but like it looks like they're kind of preparing for the show to be canceled after the second season.
Pete, what do you think about this? Because I feel like this is them sort of like hedging their bets after what happened with the Acolyte, where they want to make sure that they don't leave people on a giant cliffhanger.
I think it would be a mistake if you left people on a giant cliffhanger when it comes to the Ahsoka timeline, especially with Thrawn and everything that's important there. I I don't think if they do end in season two, that will be the last of Ahsoka and Thrawn. I think they're going to show up in movies, like we had talked about, that kind of Avengers style Star Wars movie that'll be coming out after, Mando and Grogu and all of that. I think we're going to have that return. It frightens me a bit. It makes me feel like Filoni's not confident in what he's writing. Not to say he's not a good writer. I think it's great to hear that he's the only writer because there's not too many cooks in the kitchen, because we know Dave Filoni can write a story about Ahsoka. That's kind of like his child project when it came to that. That's something he took control of, and with Clone Wars and everything like that. But it concerns me that he's doing it alone because he doesn't have the help. And I feel like that's a lot of pressure to put on one person. So um, I'm hoping that if they do write this as a final season and it gets renewed, the subsequent season makes sense. That's not just like, here's season three is what happened in between seasons one and two or something like that. Like, I hope that there's no ramifications to writing it, that there's a solid ending, that it could end in season two. I hope that you can continue to move forward if it does get renewed. Filoni's a good writer, in my opinion, from what I've seen in his projects, and I loved Ahsoka season one, loved it. So it's kind of hard to hear that there might be a contingency plan if season three doesn't get funded.
Yeah, definitely that work. Good points there, Pete. And Nick, you want to add anything on this before we move on?
Really, I think it's a safe move. Really, all I have to say.
Yeah, I think the way I look at it is like there's ways to write it where like you can tease a plot point out that's like not super important if it doesn't get answered, but like you get the breadcrumb of like, oh, if we get season three, this is what we're gonna do, but it's not the biggest deal in the world if you don't get to it.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right. Is that it for the news department, Nick?
That is it.
All right. Let's go ahead and now into the premiere of Skeleton Crew. The first two episodes got bumped up to December 2nd. So we got the premiere on Monday night instead of a Tuesday night, which was great for us because we're going to wait a few days otherwise, but this helped us out. And Pete, what did you think about what we got in the first two episodes?
I thought there were a solid two episodes. I think the writing was really solid. Not to say that I haven't seen this model before, right? I feel like it is a typical kids explore, kids get in trouble, and now they're in this situation. What do we do? But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. I enjoyed it. I think, like I said, the writing was good. The CG in some of the scenes were a little rough, mainly the opening scene, even though it was a really cool scene. But stuff that I couldn't do. Obviously it's just a budget issue. It's not more so a knock at the people who do the CG. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's a strong start to a season or a show that was very uncertain, at least for this podcast, right? We didn't know what was going to come. We were kind of excited, kind of not. We didn't know what was going to be. So I think it's a strong start.
Yeah. Nick, I went into this show, my bar very low. I said, okay, I have been disappointed by the Acolyte. I'm not expecting much here, but they did have I had some fun with these episodes. They got me laughing out loud more than I thought I would be when watching the show.
I agree. I went into the show, I want to say low bar. I kind of expected just like a fun show. I didn't want to go in there thinking, here comes Andor season two.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, the first 10 minutes, not the opening scene was really cool, but the first 10 minutes of once we got to the planet and we were introducing to our characters, I was like, what is this? This sucks. And then I don't know it just started getting better and better and better. And the end of the episode and episode one ended pretty good. And then two, I thought was really good. I'm like, oh, I actually like it. So it just kept getting better for me outside of those first like 10 minutes where I just didn't enjoy it. But I, I'm very high right now on this show. Um, you have to go into it differently. You can't go into this thinking you're getting Andor season two. You had to take it for what it is, and what it is I don't want to say it's a kid show because I don't think it is, but it's a show that is. I don't want to say what's the word I'm looking for, but like it's family friendly.
Yeah.
It's for you and it's for the kid.
Yep. It
It's
is.
for everyone.
It is for everyone here. And I do think this is a fun show here. And they do a good job getting you right in the beginning when they give you this whole scene with the pirate raid on the ship. They give you the text on the screen about how, oh, like you're probably trying to keep order, but pirates are still making their names felt here. And then get a really fun raid on the ship where we see that the original pirate leader, Captain Silamon, I think they call him, is like, oh, your ship is barricading in this big credit treasure. So they go in, there's only one credit. He ends up getting murdered because he ends up guiding his crew for a waste of resources. So very fun actiony opening.
Yeah, you know what? I have to say it that part gave me Pirates of the Caribbean vibes. And
Yeah.
I think that Disney did a pirate franchise very well. Regardless when it comes to, whatever your thoughts are on cast changes and everything like that. Keep that to the side. I think the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise did very, very well under them because they knew how to write a pirate story. So I think that's going to play a huge role in this, and we may see some not callbacks, but some similarities when it comes to what a pirate story would be. And I think that opening scene is very pirate-esque, right? There's a mutiny, there's like you lied to us and all that. And I think that it's done very well, written very well, and he gets you engaged, right? And I think that's something that's going to help them in the long run. And it's something we may, talk about throughout this season here. We have 6 more episodes. Is that we don't know much about the pirates of Star Wars. We've met some pirates, but we don't know any backstory. Don't really know how they work. We've only seen a couple episodes here and there from Clone Wars. So I feel like they have a lot of creative freedom here to do stuff. And it's something new to us where we can't overly criticize it, right? Everything else that we've done in the past or Star Wars has done in the past, we can kind of say, well, we've seen it done differently and it's better. Now you're doing it this way and it's worse, or vice versa. This is kind of like new territory. So I feel like this is a nice, strong episode.
Yeah, and when you got the pirate opening, I thought like this was a very fun spot. Obviously, we see Vane from Mandalorians in this crew is where he ran after he ran away from Captain Seaweed in Mando season 3. So definitely a fun like tone setter for the show.
Agreed. I love the way they board the ship too. That's just like how pirates would board it on a ship with double those plank looking
Yep.
things. Um, I need to understand who that character is with the mask on
I think he's just unnamed leader, basically. Like,
because they're saying that he's played by who's the guy? He was the child actor, Urkel.
oh, that's not him. That's
No,
the
they're saying
robot.
it's both.
No, it's not him because he's Gunter. He's the guy with the Lobot style eye patch.
Listen, I saw that he was playing both of those characters. He was playing that character. That's so we're still clearly dealing with some sort of flashback at the beginning opening scene, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to look it up here because I'm trying to see what they did with Jaleel White because like he's the one we were referencing. But anyway, I do think it's a fun spot here with this pirate raid. So I think we can also go ahead, Nick, to we'll get to the planet here at Attin, which is I'm calling it suburban Star Wars. So right now, I think the thing that I noticed here is so go ahead in terms of the situation with the Earl here. I think it's very wild to have suburban Star Wars going on and seeing, the trams and the kids like going to school and the school droids. It felt like very different from what we're used to with Star Wars.
Well, let's call it what it is, Mike. This is ET.
Yes, it is. Right down to the visuals.
This is ET. It is ET. And what I'm seeing, by the way, is that he does play this Gunter character.
Yeah. Oh, Jaleel White.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anywho, this is it's just ET. It's exactly like ET.
Yeah.
The neighborhood down to a T. I like a lot um, that they're doing some sort of suburban Star Wars. I think it's a really cool change of pace. Um, but it's a little too much like Earth.
It's a little too, yeah, it feels like if we were in Westchester County, you might be able to do that.
What do you mean if you were Westchester County?
It's like Star Wars Westchester County. It feels like that kind of vibes.
Oh yeah, it just looks too much like Earth. That's my only complaint, but I don't really mind.
Yeah, I do not really mind it here. And what do you think of some of these kids? Like we had obviously we saw Wim, who sort of like, the whole like I'm in this adventure. Like I don't want to be like a business guy. I want to do adventures and be a Jedi. When he gets asked on career day, you got Neil, who's his little best friend, who I think is gonna be the breakout star of the show, and you got Fern and KB's the last one, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I like all the kids, and they all have different personalities that mesh well together. And I don't want to say they hit a home run with the kids in terms of like Stranger Thing level, where everyone's gonna love them and want to grow up with them. But I think they made some good kid characters that people aren't just gonna brush away. Like there are neither, or should I say, none of the kids I look at and I'm like, oh, I don't want to see this one on my screen anymore. This is annoying. Like they're all fun characters that I'm rooting for.
Yeah, I do like that Wim has sort of got the Luke Skywalker vibes of like, I don't want to be a moisture farmer. I want to be an accountant. I want to go do something fun. I think he's got that vibe. He has no idea what to do with it.
He does. He's even playing with toys at the beginning too, like Luke was.
Yes, we do see that here with the Luke situation. But I also feel like in terms of the audio of these guys here, I do think they're fun. I do think the plaid situation is a little odd because like you see that you have this school going on here. You have a lot of, like thinking about, oh, you need to take the career aptitude test to figure out what your job is and what you're going to be in the future. All these kids are like, I want to be an analyst. Like, I want to be like a basically bureaucrats. And like, I do think it's an odd, like, I think this part where probably where Nick, you got lost a little bit when they were talking about, oh, career days here. We're going to talk about careers.
No, I think I got lost a little before this. Or maybe it was this. I don't remember. I think it was around this area, but it doesn't matter because I got back into the show like the next scene, pretty much
Yeah.
when they were like when they started opening the hatch. But um, is this like a really different world? It's secluded. They have that barrier around the whole world. There's a lot of order in the world. I don't know if the Empire, I know the Empire is non-existent at this stage in the timeline, but I feel like this isn't a republic or empire-driven world.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a independent place that has its own rules. It's very strict. There's the robots all over the droids, I should say, all over the place, enforcing the law and whatnot. It's a very different than anything we've seen before place.
Yes, I do think it's a very different situation here. And Pete, what do you think about these kids in terms of what we got with the group of four that we meet in these first two episodes?
Yeah, so apologies to the listeners. As you can probably see, I don't have video anymore. I have some technical difficulties here. So I had to switch over. So if I sound a little different, I apologize. But yeah, the kids are cool. I mean, I think the writing was pretty strong for them as well. I think the actors and actresses do a fine job. I think that it's a little difficult when you work with child actors sometimes to like portray a lot of dramatic things, and I think they do a very good job at it. There were some times where the writing was a little off, and it looks like it was being overacted because there was something going on that was super, what's the word I'm looking for, exciting or something that was super dramatic. But yeah, I mean, I think overall, the characters were good, and I think the actors and actresses did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting setup here with the with that stuff going on here. Plus, Nick, I'd say it was very funny when the whole big thing is, oh, you gotta have this, test, be ready for it, and then typical like suburban kid fashion, Wim oversleeps, misses the bus, and then has a massive adventure because of it.
Yep, I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
I actually missed the part when he overslept and just saw him on a bike. So I was like, oh, he must have just overslept. Because it was just so obvious that's what was going to happen. But led to some cool stuff.
Yeah, it's some cool stuff here. I mean, you see him trying to like, he's like, I know a shortcut. And then Neil's like trying to stop the bus. Nope, the droid's obviously not listening. He has the lost moment, Pete, where like he slides down the hill, he finds a hatch, and he's like, oh, this is a Jedi temple. I gotta get in here. And he gets busted and gets in trouble with his dad. So definitely I see the homage to Lost there.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen Lost, so thank you for letting me know. I would have never caught that. But I do like the whole bringing it back to the Jedi, the myth of the Jedi, because this is something that's, after Empire. So it's definitely the way they do it, I think, is natural. I don't think it's forced at all. I don't think it's cliche at all. We'll talk about later what it turns out to be, but unless you guys talked about it prior to me rejoining. But yeah, it works out. I think it doesn't. It's not super like thrown in your face. I think it works.
Yeah, it does work here. And we do get a lot of fun here. Is like Wim gets caught, he gets brought to detention with basically with Fern, who gets busted for I think like Nick, what was it? She was like doing like bike stuff outside that was like distracting people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they both try and go back and claim this ship. And it felt like very kid shenanigans where it's like, oh, like boys got this, girls got this. And they're both trying to think like how, like making joke about how dumb the other group is for letting them do their job. And they find this ship in the ground. And it must have been there a long ass time, Nick, for them to find it completely dusted.
I have no idea how long, but yeah, absolutely. It must have been there for at least 100 years, 200 years, I'd guess.
Yeah, for it to be completely buried in the planet's surface, it's got to be a long time.
Yep, but they don't think it's the ship.
Yeah. They don't think of the ship. They get locked in. KB was the technical kid, says, I'm going to try and find our way out. And then the genius that's Wim pushes a button, starts the ship, and end up getting launched off world. So, Pete, that's how our adventure begins. The kid hits the button.
He hits the button. It's not a Jedi temple, obviously. The thing just kind of goes, and I think it works. And I think it's a very I think it's a cool way to do it. I feel like it's something I've seen before. Like I was kind of like expecting it to happen. Like once we saw the control panel, I knew the kid was going to press the button. Seems like this character is not very accountable for his actions, even throughout the first two episodes, which we'll probably see carry over into the rest of the season. So I kind of saw it coming, but it still works. I think it was good.
Yeah, Nick, it feels like this kid Wim, like I feel like he's the George Costanza of this crew, where he's just do the opposite of whatever he thinks, and then it'll work out well for him.
That's a good strategy when it comes to betting.
Yeah. Is it?
Now, opposite of what you think
Yeah.
usually works out.
Yeah, because
He would Win would be a good sports better.
yeah, all he means well, but his strategy, but his decisions have not been wise.
No, but it was a good ending to it. I think once they showed up at the hatch and started doing it, I was like, that's pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And you see his dad showed up. Obviously, his dad wish he could have saved him, but there's nothing he could have done. And then it flew away. And then, so his dad knows they're gone, which means we could definitely get an episode or two even in the future about what's going on the planet when they're not there, because the dad knows what happened,
He
or at
saw,
least he saw, or at least he doesn't know how it happened, but he knows the ship took off with them on it, and
yes,
he could probably see all the kids too.
yes,
So you're gonna have probably an episode with the parents and whatnot, and might even be next episode. Who knows?
yeah, it might be. And P, anything else on the first? That's where we go to the second.
No, I think we covered it all.
All right. Second episode, I think, was much better than the first one, in my opinion. And then we meet the droid who we see in the first episode, who's disabled, is SM-33. And he comes in and basically is like, what's going on here? Where's my captain? And very hilarious that Fern goes full Captain Phillips, just goes, I'm the captain now. And he's like, okay.
I like it. They needed someone to step up,
Yeah.
and I like SM-33.
Yeah.
Good.
SM-33 he feels like he's got a little bit of K2SO energy.
Surprised he's not played by um Alan Tudyk. It's Nick Frost who plays him,
Yeah.
but you would think they would get Alan Tudyk to play some sort of role in this, considering he played Steve the Pirate. I mean, he has history in being pirates.
Yes.
He was Steve the Pirate in Dodgeball.
Yeah. Yeah, it is an interesting spot there. So I do think that's what's going on. And I also feel like here that SM-33, I do think it's a good idea. And we also get the very ominous foreshadow where like Wim wants to push a button and SM-30 is like, no, that's the whole implosion button. You know that button's getting pushed at some point in the show, Pete.
Oh yeah, for sure. It'll be planned. It'll probably be like, I don't want to push the button, and they're gonna yell at him to push the button. I think that's kind of how it's gonna turn, what it's gonna turn into, because he's learning not to just go rogue, if you will, no pun intended.
Yeah.
But yeah, that button is definitely, you're right. It's definitely foreshadowing something in the future.
Yeah, and Nick, I do want to talk a little bit about the dad back on the planet. He finds the security droids, and they're like basically going to check out what the earthquake version was. And the droids are very shady in this situation. They're talking about like, oh, like it's illegal for ships to come and go beyond the barrier. So like, there's something like with this planet where I feel like it's a bubble, and they do not want interaction with the outside galaxy for whatever reason. So very interesting setup there.
So I've seen another theory out there. I don't enjoy this theory. I don't think it holds much water, but I know I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit here, but they use their money to buy food and to pay off the little tour guide, if you will, the little guy, right?
Yeah.
They're all so impressed with this money, and it's Old Republic credits, and the Old Republic credits are in mint condition.
Yeah.
So the rumor circulating around, not a rumor, the theory circulating around is they time traveled when they left.
Interesting.
So that they come from a world that is during the age of the Old Republic, and when they left, they went. That's why it looks all weird above them. They went into some space-time void and that's why everyone thinks their planet doesn't exist, because everyone is saying At Attin is a lost planet and no one knows it exists. So because maybe it was destroyed, 50, 60 years ago, whatever the timeline lines up to be. I don't love the theory. I don't think they're going to introduce time travel into Star Wars like this. At all, really, but especially like this, and I don't love it, but possible, I guess.
I mean,
Makes sense.
say that again, Mike. I'm sorry.
So I think it makes sense.
I don't think so. So the reason why I disagree with that is because whenever we talked about that planet, it seemed very secluded, right? It seemed very Truman Show-esque, where everything's perfect, no one leaves that bubble. They have a barrier, which not a lot of planets do in Star Wars, especially since the Empire is gone. It just seems very odd to begin with, and I think we're going to find some more secrets and some more stories about this planet. Again, you have all these robots that are very like hush hush, no one's allowed to leave, no one's allowed to come in. So I don't know if it's time travel. More or less they've guarded themselves and they've disguised themselves so that people didn't know that they were the treasure planet, pretty much, because they know pirates are out there. And I think if the word got out that they had all this unlimited money or whatever, and they have Old Republic credits just from before the war or before the Empire or whatever, I think that would cause issues for their planet, right? They'd get invaded immediately. So I don't think it's a time travel thing. I just don't think that this planet is on the map when it comes to that, and also too, no one's allowed in or out. I mean, they have a barrier around the atmosphere, so definitely something that I think it's going to get into more. But I don't know if I buy this time travel
I,
theory.
I definitely don't buy it, but here's another point for it. Again, I don't buy it. Is they participate the planet in something called the Great Work, which is what we were discussing earlier with the assessment and whatnot. And I looked into the Great Work and what that is, and that's from the High Republic.
Yes.
And it takes place in all like the High Republic novels and whatnot.
Mm,
It doesn't take place
hmm
anywhere else. So it's just kind of interesting how this takes place during the High Republic era, not any time else, and we're seeing it here. So it's kind of interesting. But again, I do not think that this is what's happening, but I do think the theory holds a little bit of water.
Yeah. And it's also interesting here. I feel like Nick, we saw when Wim was playing with the action figures, and we saw some of his like he was looking at like stories basically of like Jedi fighting here. Like, did they any of those stories on his like little hollow pad look like anything we've seen in terms of like Star Wars stories, or is it just like generic?
I saw what they all meant, and it's fairly generic about Jedis and protection and temples and whatnot. I think those stories that he sees on the holopad are really just to make you, as the audience, and him believe that he's actually finding a Jedi temple. But to counterpoint to the whole time travel thing is this is a very secluded world. It's very possible that they just went into the secluded world during the High Republic era, and no one's really left since. That's why everything's so maintained with order that you don't really see things change. That's why they're using the Old Republic credits. That's why they still use the Great Work, because it's just very secluded.
Yeah. Plus, it's also the question about like, like the jackets they're wearing look very similar to the ones that Finn wears in the sequel trilogy, which is interesting. And the counselor, the supervisor who shows up to the class just calls it the Republic. It's not just not called the New Republic, just the Republic.
They did say that. You're right. Now, the opening crawl said the New Republic, but the opening crawl took place in like right afterwards was the opening scene with space and the pirates. I feel like if this time travel thing is true, the space pirate and whatnot, that part is modern day, or in our terms, modern day is like Mandalorian timeline. But At Attin would be the part that's not. It's almost like a Twilight Zone episode.
A little bit.
I
And
mean,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt here. I think that if they do decide to go this time travel thing, you're going to kill canon of light speed in Star Wars as a whole, right?
I
Because people
agree.
go light speed all the time, all over the place, and time didn't jump. When it comes to physics, I know I don't know much about physics, but I know when traveling at the speed of light or whatever, there could be a time continuum, or whatever. I feel like I've heard that before. Talking out of my ass here, it's just something I've heard. I'm not a physicist here, but at the end of the day, if we have all of Star Wars and in the universe of Star Wars, time travel was not a thing when you went to hyperspace, for them to do that now is just going to kill a lot of what was explained and a lot of what was used throughout all of the movies, all of the productions they've done, all of the content. And I think it'd be very foolish of them to start messing with that piece because Star Wars fans are highly critical, and this is something that can easily break the canon of the mechanics of how hyperspace works in their universe.
yeah, it's also an interesting question too when you look at this, and this is like the last point I want to make here on the time travel thing. Is like if it is time travel and these kids ended up in the distant future year, like there's a very real chance they, don't get back home and they're sort of stuck in this timeline with Jude Law. So that would be a wild scenario also.
We shall see.
Yeah. We'll definitely track that in terms of going forward here. But they do SM-33. They've asked him also like where like takes back to At, and he has no idea where it is. He lists a bunch of random worlds. I think Adawan, which he references, is where the chopper base from Rebels is. He references Aldani from Andor. They're going to this port, which basically is like the seediest like pirate port. It makes like Nick, would you say this place makes most Izzy look like the like basically like a church?
Looks like a Weenie Hut Jr. This is the salty spittoon
Yes,
from
it is.
SpongeBob. This is the salty spittoon. This place is a lot of badasses around. That woman who was with the girls at some point, even she was not trustworthy 100%. I mean, I trust. I think she wasn't trying to kidnap them, but you never know.
Yep.
She looked like she was working at a brothel.
Yep.
So a lot of shady characters here. And yeah, by characters, I actually mean that shady characters, but cool place. I don't know, just a lot of scum and villainy.
Yeah. And Pete, this is where we first find out something is up with the credits because when Wim pays their little yeek driver, like he gets the credit and just speeds off the planet. Like you're like, oh, something is up here. And then we find out later on that when Wim and Neil are trying to buy some food, and then he's like, pay with credits, and he's like, oh, where'd you get these? He's like, these are Old Republic credits in mint condition, and at Attin is and Wim's dad gave them his lunch money. So very interesting. That's that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good way to have these kids interact with the world around them.
Yeah.
A very simple transaction, right? I give you food, you give me money. Where'd you get this money? And now it turns into a problem. I know I said it a bunch in this podcast already. It's very natural, right? It doesn't seem forced. It's not like someone sees the kid walking by and they're like, I recognize that jacket. That's got to be Old Republic. Like, even though that would be fine too, it seems a little forced, right? This is very like the reason why I know is because you literally handed me something I haven't seen before or I know of, and now I'm seeing it for the first time. So no, it's definitely a great way to start the conflict.
And Nick, I did love the chef at the kitchen, basically like immediately trying to take advantage of kids. Like, oh no, wait, like this is more money. You got to give me like extra credits for the toppings and whatnot. So like immediately trying to scam these kids, and then like, gets called by another guy who's trying to scam them as well.
Yeah, at first, I just thought he was giving them too much money.
Yeah,
That was my original thought. It's like, oh, he's just, let's say it costs $10, he's giving them like 1,000, and the guy's just like, okay. But then it turns out it turns out it was Old Republic credits, which it kind of probably might translate to that much money, which is kind of the same theory, same idea. But um, this is really interesting because I want to understand why he has these credits. Wim's dad. It doesn't seem like it's abnormal on At Attin.
yeah.
So goes into that time travel theory, which again I do not stand by, but we'll see.
We'll see. And this is also where we get a lot of action with Vane and his pirates. Pete, we glad to see Vane come back from Mando 3.
Was I expecting it or did I want to?
So we were happy to see him back.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that it's cool. I think that it'll be cool to not reuse characters we've seen a bunch, but I mean, this was not a major character in Mando, where it's like, oh my God, he's back. It was nice to see, and it makes sense why he's in these circles of people. So, again, very organic, and a great way to reintroduce the character into a different series that maybe he'll have a bigger role in.
Yeah. Well, he's part of the crew that Brutus puts together here. Brutus basically, his group captures the kid. He's the werewolf looking pirate who kills the original pirate leader at the beginning of the episode. And we see this whole situation. SM-33 comes up, like, starts kicking some of their ass so they get destroyed or gets like very damaged. Get thrown into prison here. And then this is where we finally get Jude Law's character showing up here, where apparently he's been held by these guys for a long time. Use the Force to get the key to the cell. He says, I will help you guys. You come with take me with you. And then very interesting where like Wim's like, are you a Jedi? And Jude Law's response is, can you keep a secret? So I think we're being very intentionally ambiguous with the Jude Law character. Jod Na Nawood is his name. So Nick, your impression on the intro of Jude Law?
I think most people are immediately going to say, if he has the Force, why is he still in this cage? And I think the answer is really clear. He didn't have a ship.
Yep.
Now he does.
Yeah.
So my immediate reaction, to be honest with you, my immediate reaction is, here we go, another Jedi who survived Order 66. That's for another time. But right away, I'm like, okay, let's do this. This is our, I believe, our main character of the show.
Yeah.
At least we've been teased of that in the lead up to the show that he's going to be the main guy. So the kids are missing now, like, at least from home. They've met up with Jude Law. Let's start the show. Let's do it. It almost like took us a little bit to get going, but here we are.
Yeah, Pete, I think personally, I don't think he's a Jedi. I think if he was actually a Jedi character, he would have said, yes, like I am a Jedi. I'll help you get out of here. But his whole can you keep a secret thing feels to me like he's sort of like reminiscent of the character from Obi-Wan, who's played by Kumail Nanjiani, except he can actually use the Force, where he's sort of like a untrained Force user who just knows how to use the power to do parlor tricks and get what he wants.
It's possible. I mean, the first thing that came into my mind is not that he's a Jedi, that he's like a Sith or Inquisitor or whatever. I kind of went the opposite direction, that he's a Force wielder for bad. We're talking about pirates, we're talking about being in the lowest of the low areas, with the ports and stuff. So I thought maybe he was just mixed up with the wrong crowd because he was part of that wrong crowd. So my theory was maybe not Sith, because that's probably pushing it too far, but maybe like an Inquisitor-esque or someone who is using their Force for bad. Right. And quite frankly, not that I mind that he's a Force user. It just seemed like Jingle Keys a little bit. It's not a character we know, but it's like, look, we have another Force wielder. Here's Star Wars with more Force, and I get it. Star Wars is about the Force. I mean, that's the whole overlying theme of Star Wars. But we've seen that properties, or not properties, but different movies and different shows that don't have Force wielders can still be successful, right? We have Rogue One, we have Andor, and other characters too that are not Force wielders that are really really good characters. So I think that we'll see how this goes. I don't know what way he's a Jedi, Inquisitor, bad guy, whatever. But to me, it was a little bit like, oh look, another person who uses the Force. We could have had this show that didn't have it. But again, it was not bad. It was good. So I'm going to take it as good. I'm not going to knock it yet. But yeah, that's just kind of how I felt about it.
Yeah, Nick, my theory is Hans. It's like sort of like if the Han Solo smuggler character used the Force. That's what I think Jude Law's character's going to be.
Yeah, maybe he's a Force user who's not a Jedi. Like that's what we're kind of saying. Maybe we'll have to see. I mean, maybe he was a Jedi, and it's been 40 years. So he's just not a Jedi anymore.
Yeah.
I
All
mean,
right.
it's not 40 years. It'd be like 20. It'd be like a 30 years or so, roughly.
Yep. And anything else you guys want to add on the episode? We get to go to the trackers and whatnot.
Um, the only thing I'd like to add, and I say this every single show, is that I always get excited for when we don't know what's going to happen. Like we knew eventually they were going to get off world. We knew eventually they'd meet Jude Law. We knew eventually they'd have a ship. I have all that stuff now, so I was really excited because I have no clue what comes next. And that's always the best part of a show.
Yep, I would agree. You want to get into some trackers?
Of course.
Let's do it.
All right. First
I
up,
was thinking of saying no. I thought it would be funny.
let's go to the first up. We'll refresh the character draft so you'll know who we're waiting for in this show. See if anybody shows up. With no John Watts said no insane cameos, but we are hoping that we get a cameo or two. I mean, we got one this episode. It was not on anybody's boards, I don't think. But the teams right now, I have Hondo Onaka, Emphas Ness, and Mayfeld. Pete has Mando, Chopper, and Jason Sindula. Nick has Carson, Tava, Zeb, and Grogu. And based on how these first two episodes went, I love my chances.
I love mine too.
Yeah.
And of course, I don't love mine, but that's just how it goes on the Sky Guys podcast. It keeps it fresh, keeps it real.
Yeah, I feel like if we're doing all these pirate themes, got pirates in the crawl, like all three of mine could be pirate and pirate adjacent.
Possibly. I feel like mine too. I think Zeb could have been on that planet, but I can see why he's not, considering he's working for the Republic. But I like my chances here.
I think your best hope is that Carson Tabor runs into them some point on his X-wing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe this is again, we've said this off here. If Hondo Onaka is not in this show, he is never going to be in a live action show.
I agree.
Let me tell you something. When we talk about Hondo, when they first went into that little, what we thought was a base, it
Yeah.
was giving me Smuggler's Run vibes.
Yes.
And I was like, wait a minute. Like, is this where we get Hondo? Like, has he just been like frozen in time or something in a cryo tube or something? I don't know. But anyway, so you're right, I think. If we don't get him here, we're not getting him.
All right. So
We'll get him.
I think we'll get him too. So we'll get to our trackers. You think we'll keep track of. I'll run through all of them today because we have that. And then as they come up the followings, we'll mention them as we start here. So Hondo is on the board still. He has 19 appearances. Pete, we did add one from when he showed up in Force of Destiny season 2, but no live action yet. 19 on Hondo.
Yep, we'll get there. I'm confident with Nick that we'll get a live action Hondo.
All right. One planet so far, Nick. At Attin is the only planet we visited.
And that outpost, that's not a planet.
Yeah. Outpost is not a planet. Pete, we got one classic line because we heard several times where Wim and Neil were saying that things were totally wizard.
All right, so all the Star Wars fans that are like hardcore are gonna hate me for it. Where is that from?
Phantom Menace.
Phantom Menace. That's right. That
It's
was the whole the
is
pod
it
racing thing, right?
is it Greedo who says it, or is it the other guy?
I think it's the other kid because he says it's wizard,
It
Andy.
was this was like before the pod race, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm not too far off then.
And Nick, remember they resurrected it in Mando's in Book of Boba Fett when Mando builds his new ship. He says it's wizard.
Okay.
Next up here, we had a cameo. I don't know if you guys caught this one or not. Did you guys catch the cameo?
I don't think so.
Was it the lightsaber toy?
No, it was when Wim goes to find Neil after school, and he looks in the window and sees the Neil siblings. Like they're watching the circus hologram from the Star Wars holiday special.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
did see that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a wild pull. And now they're
I thought
bringing.
you were talking more of like a character.
No, that is a cameo because it is like technically like a hologram for Star Wars characters.
Yeah, I thought you meant like a character that appeared on like the outpost that I just didn't notice. But yeah, I did notice that.
Yeah. And Pete, aren't you really watch that now so we can catch that for our viewers?
I didn't even catch it, so I'm doing a horrible job here. But no, that's pretty cool. I mean, at least they're not shying away from it. You know what I'm saying? Like I know they've tried to bury that thing, but now I think they just have to fully embrace it.
Yep. Next up here we have pirates. We check on named pirates. We got four so far. We got Captain Salos gets murdered in the intro. Brutus, Vane, and Gunter, who is Jaleel White's character. So four named pirates so far, Nick.
I hope we have more than that at the end. The over under is set at 9.5.
All right, we'll see about that. In terms of named kids, Pete, we had nine. We had Wim, Runa, who was the green alien kid in school who Neil has a crush on. Neil, Fern, Dolim, KB, and then his Neil siblings Tulo, Jobo, and Jorko. So nine named children so far.
All right.
And the last one, which we have not hit yet, no memes yet, as far as I can tell on the internet. I think we'll get a meme out of this show at some point.
We're gonna get it out of what's his name?
Neil.
Neil. We're gonna get it out of Neil for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Neil's got the meme potential. I said that in the preview.
Or they may make a meme out of the "Don't press the button." You mean this button or something like that? Like they're just gonna keep doing something like that. I think.
All right, so that's what we got here. Now do the MVPs of the episode here. So we're gonna, as we do every show, we're gonna do the best and worst character of the episode. Since this is the premiere, we're going to do two of each, two MVPs, two LBs for two episodes. So not to be contained to the first episode. I'll start with my MVPs. I'm going to give one to Fern for having a brain amongst the children and taking control in the situation when things were going off the rails and pulling the Captain Phillips move and having it work. Also give one to Brutus here because he asserts his claim to leadership of the pirate clan, basically takes over and they bloody coup in the premiere. So goes to my two MVPs. P, who are you going to put on the board?
First MVP for the two episodes of the writers. I think this was strongly written. I think that yes, um, it might have been, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Anticipated. You know, it's not something I've seen before. I'm not gonna say it's a totally original idea. But I think it was a strong start. This was a start that the Acolyte needed badly. Not to say Acolyte was bad. I also enjoyed it too, but this was a very strong start with a brand new story. So I give the writers an MVP there. And then I also give the MVP to Neil because Neil seems like the timid kind of kid that just wants to be home, whatever, and just kind of go with the flow. And now he's in a different galaxy or whatever, or across the galaxy, just kind of just dealing with it. So I'll give him the MVP for his courage.
Nick, how about you?
I'm gonna go with Fern also. Same reasons that you mentioned. Took charge and it's admirable. And also Neil. Neil's a great character. He's funny and they've done it. There's one thing Star Wars has done an unbelievable job at since the Disney purchase, it's the sidekick characters are always fantastic.
Yes.
Agreed.
Even in the video games, of BD1 and Nyx and now Neil in this, there's always a great the Grogu. There's always an amazing sidekick character, and Neil, I think, fits the bill.
Yeah. Neil's a great pick there. So now we'll go the other way. Who are the LVPs this episode, Pete?
Um, I'm gonna say Wim's dad. I just feel like he's very not in his son's life, and he seems like he's very work, 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 work. And that's why Wim's getting into all this trouble. So I'll give him an LVP. Am I giving the second one too?
Yeah, second one as well.
Yeah, and I just think Wim. I mean, I just the dude just doesn't know how to control himself. He's obviously a child, right? Like we can't say like act like an adult. Like, was it Fern?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like she says that a couple times, but like I know he's a child, but like the dude just can't control himself, and he got everyone in this mess. Granted, this is the whole point of the show. If he doesn't, we don't have a show. But I digress. As a character, I'm gonna have to give it to him as well.
Nick, what do you think?
I'll give him the same two. Wim, the exact same reasons. It's all reason everything happened. And Wim's dad, for the same reasons too, he's not involved in his son's life. I mean, I get it. You can clearly tell that he loves his son and cares deeply for him, and he works for him most likely. So they have, food to put on the table and whatnot, and Old Republic credits. But sometimes it's a little too much.
Yeah, the work-life balance is not there. Although to be fair to Wim's dad, it does sound like Wim's mom passed away at some point in the
Yeah,
past.
I do feel bad giving it to Wim's dad because I know he's most likely working as hard as he can for Wim and himself, but it seems as if work has become 99% of his life rather than the 50-50 it should be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I just want to put this out there. I mean, we are talking about a fictional character. That's number one. But number two, where we're talking about the character that we're seeing. I'm sure as a character, Wim's dad loves him and he's working for like hard and everything like that. And it's not a knock at people who work hard. I'm not trying to do that. All I'm saying is, as a character in the first two episodes, the dude's really not around and expects his however old was he 12? I don't even know that. Did they give an age? I can't remember.
yeah,
12 sounds about, I don't think they did, but 12 sounds about right.
Let's say 10 to 12-year-old, just like get yourself to school, get yourself lunch, study for this huge exam, blah blah blah. Okay, you don't have time for this, I'm working by. So just going to put that out there. I'm not knocking hardworking families out there. I'm not knocking anyone that has to work long hours. It's just about the character themselves, and these two episodes was not there for the son, and this is what turns into the problem.
All right, so I'll wrap up the LAPs. I'm giving one to the security droids because they are absolutely useless. Like Nick, can you name something
They're
positive
terrible.
actually did in this episode?
No.
Yeah. For what their job is, they are very bad at it. And like,
Actually, I can. The planet seems to be in unbelievable order.
yes, yeah, but like the second these kids like get off world, like they let four children steal a spaceship and get off world.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's going especially when the whole mission is we're supposed to be a secret planet apparently. And,
Right.
and I'm gonna give it to Wim as well, just for the sake of saying, like he knows better. He knows he should be studying. He knows he should be getting ready with his big test that his dad apparently had to skip out on work and give him a second chance at. And his idea is like, I found a hatch. I have to go find the Jedi Temple. You can go find the Jedi Temple tomorrow after you take the test.
Good point. He could have just went tomorrow. Didn't think of that. But I guess Fern knew about it, so she would have been there. But
Yeah, I mean, like he didn't know Fern was going to that either. He just wanted
yeah,
to,
that's a very good point. He could have just went. He could have waited a day.
yeah, he could have waited a day here. So now let's go here. We're great each episode on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is worse than 1978 Hollywood special. We saw reference in this episode. 10 is up there with the Prison Break Commander with the pinnacle of Star Wars content. Nick, give us the premiere for grade for episode 1 first. The this could be a real adventure.
One, I'll give a 6.
Okay.
Thought it was fine. Um, it started slow in my opinion and ended rather a lot stronger. And it's one of those episodes that when I think back to it, it's better than I enjoy thinking back to it more than I enjoyed at the time, if that makes sense. Like I would enjoy a second watch more than I enjoyed the first watch.
Yeah, I'm also give us a 6. I think it's a fine episode. Like the pirate sequence is a big highlight, and the end is great. The middle takes a little time, but I understand what they need to do in the middle. So, Pete, your grade.
I'm gonna give it 7.5. I think it's a solid 7.5. I don't have any issues with it, like you guys said, But I think with Disney Star Wars, that's a huge plus nowadays. I feel like most episodes we're watching, we have issues with the episode. And I just think that it's solid writing and it's a great way to start the season. Is it grandiose? Is it like the best Star Wars I've ever seen in my life? No, absolutely not. But it's still good. It's a solid first episode. So 7.5.
Episode 2 now. We're going to way past the barrier. I've given this an 8. I feel like this set us up with a lot of fun at the port. Like classic Star Wars, we're running into a bunch of aliens doing debauchery and a bunch of scum and villainy. I thought there's a lot of fun. You got some good lore building with the At Attin mystery. You got the tease of Jude Law and what he might actually be up to. So good stuff there. Pete, your grade for this one.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 1 point higher than my premiere here, 8.5. I mean, pretty much what you said. We get some action now. Again, could be a lot more, could be a lot more with the plot, but still very solid episode. Let me just tell you, probably the strongest 30-minute live action episode Disney Star Wars has released. Just going to put that out there. Because all of the 30-minute episodes that we've seen, as much as we like the shows, were probably the weakest of the episodes because it was almost like a filler or anything like that. So in my opinion, probably the strongest 30-minute episode that Disney Star Wars has produced. So 8.5.
Nick, round us out.
I'll give it an 8 also. Much better than the first. I know they can have a better episode, so I'm going to leave room.
Yeah, I'm going to leave room here too. Plus, at the point that Pete made with the action, Nick, here, very impressed we're able to work around 4 children being our main leads and have this much built up action this episode.
They really did a good job with the kids. I said it earlier. I don't think they hit a home run like Stranger Things with the kids. People are going to fall in love, but they found 4 kids and none of them are annoying.
That's amazing.
Even Wim, who we all gave LVPs, I don't dislike Wim as a character at all. He just made some dumb decisions.
Yeah, he's a fun character. I like he's got the joy for the world that like we love out of our Star Wars characters.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah. All right, so now let's wrap up here. Predictions for next week, episode 3. So now we've seen Jude Law. You know, he's got the key. They're in the jail cell. Pete, what happens next?
Yeah, so I think let's call it what it is. They get out, they get back to the ship one way or another. There may be some trickery amongst everyone, and I think that Jude Law may actually take advantage that these characters are children and try to like kind of pull a fast one on them, and just to get off planet. And I think that we're gonna find some internal conflict within the character, Jude Law's character, because probably has a little bit of good in him, but also has a little bit of bad in him. He's been locked up in a brig for however long. We may get into a little side adventure. I don't think we're going to get any closer to home though for the kids next episode.
Nick, what do you think?
I think we're going to get a little bit of the Jude Law kid stuff, but I think we're going to go back to At Attin and spend a lot of the time with Wim's dad and Fern's mother and them getting together, discussing what happened, whatnot, like raising awareness on At Attin about what happened.
So Wim's dad and Fern's mom basically get the attention of the community that know adult kids are missing.
I think so.
I say that's a good stuff here. I also think here, I feel like this is going to be a situation where I do think that Pete's right that Jod is going to string the kids along and say, I'll help you get back, but first I need to go here and do this. And they'll be like, okay, because they have no other adults they can actually trust. So I think
Gotta go see Zeb and Carson Teva.
He's gonna go. He's like, I have to go find some friends to help us get back to your planet. So I think he's
right. He's got to find Chopper.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
It could be.
Yeah, he'll find.
Sorry.
He'll find Chopper. Bill Burr will be there. They'll have some beer. Good times.
I do think if I could just add to my prediction, I do think we get a little bit of history of the planet, and I think they're going to explain what my theory is that this planet is highly protected and there's a reason why people don't go in and out. I think that Wim's father is going to get a talking to by Fern's mother because she seems like one of the top people about why people don't go in and out and why this is serious and all that kind of stuff. So I think we may get some answers with that theory as well.
All right, so let's see what's going on here. Thank you guys for coming on. We'll be back next week, and be aware our schedule is going to be a little fluid here at these record times because, Nick, this show coming out around the holidays, we got episodes coming on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. So we'll be a little aware, but the episodes release dates might not be.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I mean, like, you change the day by one day.
Yeah.
for this week. You're not going to change it for one day on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve?
Well, let me tell you something. It would actually be good for them to keep it on Christmas Eve or Christmas or any of these holidays because you're with the family. It's a family show. I think it's actually better for them when it comes to viewership. A little worse for us because we're trying to do a podcast on it. But I think it's better for viewership that everyone's home on vacation. What do you want to do? You want to watch some TV? Hey, new Skeleton Crew comes out. Let's watch it. You know?
Yeah. We give some presents out at 9 o'clock. Hey, let's watch Skeleton Crew before you go to bed.
Get your eggnog,
Exactly.
right?
Yep. With the eggnog, and you could like with the adults, you could put some alcohol in the eggnog.
Yeah, I am very excited to go pick up some eggnog this weekend.
I actually bought some yesterday. I went to Stu Leonard's and they had some out.
That's where I'm going to go.
Yeah. And then we did not go to the same Stu Leonard's, but
Not the same Stu Leonard's, though.
yeah. All right. So I want to thank you guys for coming on here. And as always, also mentioned here, we're gonna have some guests coming on here starting next week. So we're gonna have some guests coming on here to do live action episodes of this. So that's gonna be always fun, Nick.
Anyone I've heard of?
Yeah, you heard a few of them.
Cool. I'm excited.
Yeah, we'll see who shows up next week. Pete, people want to follow you on social media. I'm gonna do that.
Yeah. At Consy29 on Twitter, CONSY 29. If you were seeing the background I had earlier in the video, AP Title 308 created that. Check them out on Reddit.
Yeah, hopefully Pete's technical difficulties get resolved. We can see it next week. And Nick, one more time, people want to follow us on social media. How can I do that?
At Stag Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, X, and TikTok.
Yeah, you can also follow me on social media at mphillips331. It's MPHILIPS331. This week over on the Just End the Suffering podcast, we did a Mets offseason think tank with the great Martino Puccio. It's going to come out the day after this one does. So coming out Tuesday night here, Wednesday on the Just End the Suffering podcast, the Met offseason think tank. So Martino and I had some fun discussing the ideas of how the Mets could build their roster this offseason.
Yeah, let's get some new players. I got the money to do it.
They have a lot of open roster
See
spots.
what happens. What you say?
A lot of open roster spots also.
They do. They have a lot of people that are not on the team that were on the team last year. So we'll see that they're going to be very different looking team next year.
Yep. We'll be back next week to cover the latest episode of Skeleton Crew. That episode, expect that in your podcast feeds on Wednesday night. Until then, may the force be with you.